An Englishman goes into a cave, and in the cave he sees a table on which is laid a £5 note. And he picks up the £5 note, and a voice comes, "I am the ghost of Cain and Abel. Put that £5 note back on the table." In a moment of fright, he puts the £5 note back on the table and runs out of the cave. A Scotsman enters the cave, sees the note, picks it up, and the voice again comes, "I am the ghost of Cain and Abel. Put that £5 note back on the table." And so he does and runs out. An Irishman walks into the cave, sees the £5 note, picks it up. "I am the ghost of Cain and Abel. Put that £5 note back on the table." And the Irishman says, "I'm the ghost of Davy Crockett. I'll put this £5 note in my pocket," and goes off with it. That's a very old joke. It's well over 60 years old. I remember being taught it as a child. It's unusual because normally when you have these jokes about, say, an Englishman, a Scotsman, and an Irishman, usually the Irishman is the butt of the joke, the one who does something daft or silly, foolish. This is not unique to telling jokes in these islands. In France, for example, they tell jokes about Belgians. And just as you might say, well, for Englishmen, Irishmen, Scotsmen jokes, it's not really, it's true to say that Irish are thick or anything, that's just daft. It's a kind of incipient racism. Similarly for the French and Belgians. I'm told that if you're American, you tell jokes about Polish people. And of course, it's daft again. It's not that Polish people are any dafter than anybody else. Believe it or not, Geordies tell jokes about Mackhams. Now I have to think about that one. It's common. It's common that people tell jokes about other groups of people. And usually, particularly those who are into comedy, Ken Dodd used to say this, for example, the first jokes are really about those people over there, the people in the next town or village, or the ones who live over the hill or over the river, over the sea, whatever it might be. It's about difference, and I suppose it's about looking down on them. So who did the people of Judea tell jokes about back in the time of Jesus? They told jokes about Galileans because they had this belief that Galileans were a little bit challenged, if you know what I mean. They had this thing that, well, their land was an all kind of mixed up place. It's interesting that in the Gospel, the version of the prophecy of Isaiah is ever so slightly different, because when Isaiah makes the prophecy, he refers to Galilee of the nations. By the time you get to Matthew, it's become Galilee of the Gentiles. And before, it was the people who walk in darkness have seen a great light. By now, in Matthew, it's become the people dwelling, sitting in darkness. They've given up hope. They're hopeless. It seems to be partly historical, because that part of the world was the first to be invaded by foreigners, and they just gave in. That's how people thought of it in the south, around Jerusalem. They just packed up. They were hopeless. They also spoke about people from that part of the world as, well, their speech is desperately bad. You can tell by their accents. Do you remember the story of Peter going into the house of Caiaphas when Jesus is put on trial? And one of the servants says, "Your accent gives you away." Or again, do you remember when Nathanael is told about Jesus, first of all, and he's told that Jesus comes from Nazareth, Galilee. And Nathanael says, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" They looked down on people from Galilee. They told jokes about them. They thought they were uncouth, spoke badly, dressed badly, just were hopeless people. So it's fascinating that when Jesus wants to find his first disciples, he doesn't go to people who will talk proper. He doesn't find people who will be welcomed into the homes of those who are well-to-do and will have the right kind of accent. He picks Galileans. He picks people who will be regarded as a bit dim. He picks people who will be regarded as, well, their Judaism is all mixed up. After all, they live amongst all of these Gentiles. He picks the wrong kind of people. He picks people who will struggle in the proclamation of the gospel, literally in speaking, as far as people are concerned. I suppose therein lies our hope. It says something about the priority of Jesus Christ, that he calls those who are looked down on by others. He calls you and me. And I suppose in that, we recognize that we're not always as perfect as we would like to be. We recognize that there are some who would regard us as a bit daft. There are some who will say they have a funny accent. They look a bit disheveled. I look around the church today and I see disheveled people, people who talk funny, people who might be a bit challenged. I'm looking in the mirror, of course, because we're all like that. But therein lies our hope. The Lord calls Galileans, and he calls you and me.